And welcome to Embarc Collective. I'm Allie Felix. I'm our VP of Platform here at Embarc, and it's so exciting to have you here. This is our third Builder Series event. Has anyone been to our other Builder Series events? I see some hands in the back. We've hosted amazing speakers like Shelley Archambault, Ryan Serrant, and tonight we have a super special guest, Joe Lopano. And just before we get into that, the Builder Series really exists to provide quarterly educational content that brings together this community of technologists, of entrepreneurs, of corporate leaders, of community builders, of students with unparalleled business icons and leaders in our industry and market. And tonight we're particularly excited to host Joe Lopano, who's the CEO of Tampa International Airport and my favorite Instagram account, and a fireside chat with Lakshmi Shenoy, who's the CEO of Embarc Collective. And the theme is on delighting your customer. So we always try to tie these events to business themes that are relevant to the startups building here at Embarc Collective. And delighting our customer is, I think all of us who have traveled in and out of Tampa International Airport can say they hit the nail on the head with that. And we're going to cover topics from their award-winning strategies to customer experience, the technological advancements that they've made in their employee culture, why it's such a great place to work and to travel out of. But before we jump in, I'm going to encourage you to participate in tonight's conversation and ask Joe questions using our tool called Slido. So there's rotating screens that have a QR code. There's one up here. If you have a burning question, submit it so that we can get all of our amazing audience questions and you all involved. We received, I'd say like half of you submitted questions on our RSVP form, which is amazing because we always want to make sure that this conversation and dialogue is coming from you and the questions that you want to hear as you're building your businesses and leading in your organizations and world. So thank you. And after the reception, we'll close out. We'll have a networking reception to close out our content. So we have great speaking content ahead, and then you'll get an opportunity to meet all of the amazing folks who are in the room. But tonight wouldn't be possible without an amazing partner of ours here at Embarc Collective, and that's Hillsborough County EDi2. Jennifer Whalahan is in the back. Jennifer, wave. Say hello. If you if you aren't familiar with EDi2 and the initiative there, it's Hillsborough County's initiative to grow technology, innovation, startup jobs, private investment by strengthening the services and resources that directly support entrepreneurs, like programs like the Builder Series at Embarc Collective. EDi2 has a program-oriented focus, providing grant funding and support for large in-scale events or opportunities that enable entrepreneurs to succeed. They have an amazing series, a breakfast series that you can check out and visit different businesses and entrepreneurial organizations, corporate leaders. They're actually headed to the airport later this month. Jennifer, what's the date on that? July 26th, don't miss it, for their coffee meetup with EDi2. And now we're going to get to the good stuff. So allow me to introduce an entrepreneur who's building here at Embarc Collective. He's building a bold and scalable and thriving company right here in our backyard, Neil Jarrell. He's the founder and CEO of Happy Hour. And Neil's on a mission to empower local bars and restaurants with a better way to reach the right consumers with the right offers at the right time. I've had the privilege of seeing Neil grind day in and day out, building his company Happy Hour, and bringing this community along with him. So I'm really excited for you to say hello and get to meet Neil and for him to introduce our speakers tonight. So Neil, please welcome me on stage.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to be here tonight to introduce two local business legends with a track record of success. I was told when given this opportunity that I get about a minute of self-promotion, so I'm going to take that opportunity. My name is Neil Jarrell. I'm a proud member of Embarc Collective and the founder of Happy Hour. Happy Hour is a brand activation and sales enablement tool for beer, wine, spirits brands and their network of bars and restaurants. It amplifies brand activation investments in a way that drives butts to bar stools and lips to glasses. For our users, you guys, it is the easiest and best way to discover live food, drink, and event specials happening nearby. Talking about live happy hours, karaoke nights, Taco Tuesdays, Burger Mondays, bottomless brunch on the weekends, anybody? That and so much more. If it's happening at a bar or restaurant, it is on Happy Hour. We like to say it's not just happy hours, every hour is happy hour. It's available on iOS and Android, free to download, no login required. Would love your feedback on it. And if you get an extra minute, please give it a 5-star written review on the App Store. So now for our speakers. By show of hands, who has traveled through the Tampa International Airport? Awesome. Again, by show of hands, who's landed or traveled through another airport and said, this place holds nothing to Tampa International Airport? Happens every time I travel. That is the work of Joe Lopano. Joe has over 40 years of aviation industry experience, including roles like Executive Vice President of Marketing and Terminal Management at Dallas-Fort Worth, leadership roles at Continental Airlines, and in 2011, we got the privilege of having him as our CEO. Joe is a true visionary of the industry, and I think if his career had a tagline, it would be, "Make airports great again." After 13 years of amazing contributions to TPA, Joe announced his retirement. I would like to give him a personal thank you for making Tampa International an amazing place to travel from and a place that I look forward to coming home to. Give a round of applause for Joe. And then leading tonight's discussion is, of course, Lakshmi Shenoy, founder and CEO of Embarc Collective, which is a globally ranked startup incubator serving the most ambitious and resilient startup founders and teams in Florida. Before Embarc, Lakshmi was the VP of Strategy and Business Development for 1871 in Chicago. We're really happy to have her here in Tampa. 1871 was a #1 university-affiliated incubator in the world. And in addition to her work serving startup founders, she's worked for several global brands, including Leo Burnett and Time Inc. I haven't told her this yet, but Lakshmi is really one of my most admired entrepreneurs, someone I'm eternally grateful for, and her hard work and vision for Embarc Collective is the reason startups like mine have the resources to succeed. So everybody give it up for Joe and Lakshmi.
Thank you, Neil. Those kind words do not mean you get an extra discount on your monthly membership. All right. Gosh, what's it like to be a celebrity?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to come out tonight. And I don't feel like a celebrity, honestly. I'm excited to be with so many smart young people with great ideas. And so for me, it's an honor to be here.
I do have to say one thing though, because there is so much disagreement in the world, but I think everyone can agree that Tampa International Airport is the best airport that anyone has ever flown to.
I think I can share this story with you. My son, Scott, is here. He played football for University of Pennsylvania, and so we used to go to tailgate parties before the game. And I had been announced as the new CEO of Tampa International Airport, and I was at a tailgate party in Philadelphia, and a woman at the tailgate party evidently was told that that guy, Joe Lopano, is going to be running your airport. So the woman came right up to me and got in my face, and she said, "Don't you mess up my airport." I said, "Yes, ma'am." I've never seen, I grew up in New York, and we weren't exactly proud of LaGuardia, so I've never seen a city where the airport's almost like a sports team. So it's really cool.
I would certainly wear a Tampa International Airport jersey if that came out. It's just a swag idea for you.
I think that could happen.
Okay, excellent. Just put Lopano on the back. All right, let's do it. All right, well, as Ali described, we're going to focus this conversation on delighting the customer, because as for all of us startup builders, without our customer, we don't have anything. And so you guys do it incredibly well. And we'll sort of meander from that topic into some other related conversations before we get into really recognizing all of the impact that you have made throughout your career and on this community. So I want to make sure that we are really celebrating just the hard work and the impact that you have made, because you have a lot of people. I was reading the article about the number of travelers in the Tampa region. Like, there's a lot of people that love you and your team. So,
Well, I couldn't have done it without my team. They're amazing, and they're the culture and the team and our belief in customer service excellence is embedded in everything we do.
well, that's actually a perfect segue into my question, which is, we get to experience the byproduct of a great customer experience. I'm really curious, you as a leader, how internally with your team do you describe the desired customer experience? Because we just sort of get the net effect, but you guys probably have a whole equation or approach. Sort of take us inside, what happens in the meetings over on with your team.
So one of our strategic objectives is customer service excellence. There's a number of them, safety, of course, security. But customer service excellence is one of the most important. And I think that the way that everybody gets the message of what I expect is by just watching me. And so I'll walk by through the terminal. When I first got there the first week, I'm walking through the terminal, there's a piece of paper on the floor. I pick it up and throw it away. And everybody sees that, and they're like, CEO's picking up paper. You better get after it. And I see a seat that is torn. I take a picture of it and send it to my staff and say, we got to fix this, we got to be better. Popcorn on the floor, I take a picture and I send it. We got to be better than that. We got to be better. And when everybody understands that the bar is really high, very high, they do what they need to do to get there. And they understand that it's really not that hard of a job. If that's the expectation, that's what it's going to be. If the tables need to be cleaned up at the concessions, or if the garbage pails are too full and need to be emptied, we'll get after it and empty them. Customers don't want to see that. And so I guess it's lead by example and live it. I mean, every day you got to do it. It's not like this month we have a customer service focus and that's it. Every single day you got to do it.
So it's embedded into your culture. Are there any metrics that you guys use to really sort of evaluate it longitudinally and understand, like, when are you guys a little bit off track, or when are you sort of taking your foot off the gas as you're thinking about that intent of having an excellent customer experience overall?
Yeah, so there are a lot of external organizations that give out awards. J.D. Power awarded us twice. The domestic airport of the year, great customer service. But how many people, by show of hands, have used the internet out at the airport? Okay, did you have to answer one or two questions before you could get on? Okay, that is a key thing that we use every day. And we tried to keep it not long. I think it's only like 2, maybe 3 questions. But they're really important for us, and we monitor it every day. And so we can do a real-time evaluation of what people think. I'll give you an example. We were in Oslo, and we were benchmarking that airport. And it is a quiet airport. That's what they call it, a quiet airport. There's no music. There are no announcements of a flight departing. Everything is done with signage or through a text message. The airport is as peaceful as you could imagine. So I told my guys when I came back, I said, hey, that really was a great experience. What do you think about trying it? They said, sure, why not? We'll just shut it off. Shut it off. A month later, we asked the question, did you notice? No. How did you think about the experience in the terminal actually went up? So there's enough noise in an airline terminal without adding music. There's enough confusion without adding music. So it was even worse when we had CNN airports. If you remember those TVs that were at every gate, you could see people getting blown up just before you get on an airplane at 500 miles an hour with no helmet. We didn't think that was such a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a nice, you're segueing into my next question. That's perfect. It's like we coordinated. Well, I'm really curious about, like, what are those challenges that you're acutely aware of as you're designing and maintaining your standard of excellence as it relates to the customer experience?
Great question, and I'll give you an answer that most people in this room will understand and relate to. There are certain standards that are created internationally and domestically by an organization called the IATA, International Air Transport Association. And so I was having this conversation. We're having a meeting with all our airlines and showing them what we wanted to build as our new Airside D, which is about to get approved. And they said, well, these restrooms are way too big. And I said, well, what do you mean? They said, well, the IATA standard is this size and this many fixtures, and you have double that. And I said, well, let me ask you, who's on IATA? They said, well, the airlines. I said, there's no airports on there, right? No. I said, we're going to build these restrooms to be twice as big as the normal. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's like Yogi Berra said, you can observe a lot by watching. Watch people when they get off a plane and see what they do. They go directly to the restroom. The reason is the restroom on the plane is usually so small and nasty nobody wants to use it. Second is you can't get out of your seat to go to use it. So when you land, the first thing you do is go to the restroom, so it peaks. When you dump an airplane of 150 people, the restroom can't be 6 fixtures. It needs to be more than that. And so I told this airline person, happened to be Delta, I said, just one of these days, I know you're in an office a lot, but one of these days just sit at a gate and just watch what happens. And then that'll tell you where you should be focusing.
Delta's in the room. We love Delta.
Where's Delta? I'm a platinum or a gold, whatever I am. I'm boron. I'm a boron level. Yeah.
So you had mentioned, as you were thinking about the strategy for your team and sort of the directive, you mentioned safety along with the actual experience. I'm assuming that in times those can come into tension with one another. And I'm curious, when you have that type of, for any startup, they may have 2 priorities for how they deliver the work that they do that may not be always perfectly aligned. How do you navigate the tension that may exist between 2 very, very critical priorities?
Great question. I think the way I would answer that is that they're not mutually exclusive, but they do need to be prioritized. And for an airport, especially given all the things that are out there these days, safety and security is #1 priority. That's it. Nothing stops that. Once you get through that part, though, the next thing is customer satisfaction. And you can actually incorporate a lot of customer satisfaction into safety and security. As an example, you can now clear customs internationally by using your face. Okay, so that's customer service, that's safety and security. We do something also using LiDAR, where we can, without identifying you by your face, we can have a picture of a gate area that'll tell us how many people are there at any given moment. And we can have people come out and service that area very well. So we use safety and security to enhance customer service as well. And I think that's going to be more and more in the future. Yeah. I think most people in this room especially would say, I'm used to doing self-checkout. I don't need to have people doing this. That's the way the airports are going to go in the future. It's going to be all touchless. It's all going to be facial recognition. And if it's done right, you should be able to clear security in less than a minute and clear customs on the return in less than a minute.
That's an incredible sort of aspect, and I think an improvement in terms of the customer experience. And you were talking about almost like the low-touch aspect. I'm going to pivot us to talk about some of the more human aspects of the airport, and one being the food and beverage brands that you have in each what is it? Each terminal? Is that airside? I was like, I'm there enough. I should know. And so Mise en Place, Buddy Brew, Cigar City, all of these great brands that mean a lot to us as locals are all represented inside of the airport. Can you talk a little bit about your commitment to championing local brands, and what's been the feedback? What are the learnings? Has all of that been sort of a given, or was that a big chance? And I'd be really interested just to understand, like, how has it been successful?
Yeah, so it comes down to economics. So we're like running a business. We are owned by Hillsborough County, but we are not supported by Hillsborough County taxes. So if you look at your tax bill, you might see the port on there, but you won't see Tampa International Airport. The way we support the airport is through increasing sales. So it's in our best interest to have the best ring value for all of our concessionaires. And I'll give you an example. We used to have a store there called Doggy Works, and I love pets and dogs and all that, but who goes to the airport to buy doggy stuff? I mean, not really. So we turned it into a Swarovski, and we tripled the revenue per square foot first day. And so we've taken our revenues from $100 million a year to $300 million a year without touching taxpayer dollars. And so the reason for the local concepts is, number one, we want the local business people to benefit from our airport. They should make money at our airport, not some company in Minneapolis. So that's number one. Number two, these companies have great products, great services, and we can get the ring value up, so it drives our revenues and our ability to survive better.
The community Embarc Collective knows that nothing gets me more excited than increased revenue, so I'm delighted.
Me too.
This customer is delighted by that sentiment. So as I'm cruising Instagram, what often happens is that I see like a friend of mine who's like a business professional, very serious. Maybe occasionally they'll post a picture of their kids, but typically it's like pretty serious, except when they have to post a selfie of them and Phoebe. And can you just talk to us, since that's a pretty new, I would call it a regional attraction that has emerged. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you decided to, like, who came up with the idea, like, I have a great idea, let's fund a flamingo, and make that the center point of the TPA experience?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We have an art program where we dedicate 2% of our construction budget to art. And as you know, we spend a lot of money on construction, so we can spend a lot of money on art. So we had a committee that was formed. It brought the artist community from Tampa and St. Pete and so on, Pinellas County. And we had a group of maybe 10 people who evaluate art. And we went out with a request for proposals, and we got like 65,000 submissions of art that we had to evaluate. And so the professionals, our guys who know art, you wouldn't want to leave it up to me. They narrowed it down to a reasonable number. And then, so the executive team, I'll never forget the day, we're sitting in the executive conference room, and our art guy comes in and says, we got the finalists, we want you to look at these. Okay. So they go through all these different things, and then the last thing they brought up was the pink flamingo. And I would say more than half of my executives were like, oh my God, that's tacky. And I said, no, we're in Florida. It's a flamingo. I said, people will love it. They'll take pictures with that flamingo. I'm telling you, they'll be on Instagram. And so I sort of put my name on the line that we're going with the flamingo. And thank God it worked out right, because I'd be, hey, there's Mr. Flamingo, what a jerk. So, yeah.
I'm sure you get feeds of all of the visual proof of how impactful it is, but I'm happy to go and sleuth my friends' Instagrams if you need it, because they're putting themselves on the line as well by taking a photo with it. So it's pretty incredible. Well, as we talk about Instagram, you guys make airports look really fun. And you do it through an incredible social media presence. And in a past Builder series, we talked a lot about brand building and the risks that you all have taken to create a brand voice. It's so unexpected to come from an airport. And so tell us about that evolution to create a social media presence for TPA, and what permissions did you give your team to just kind of go out there and experiment to figure out what's going to resonate?
Yeah, I think I remember when, if you remember Janet Zink, she was my first head of communications and PR, and she says, we got to develop a social media presence. And this is like 12 years ago, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And now we've evolved it into bringing in really, really smart young people who understand social media, and we let them just run with it. And the beautiful thing is, I think that we have a larger-than-life airport, and now we have a way to communicate how much fun it is there. There's a lot of things that happen at the airport. I was giving a speech one time in somewhere over in Europe, And I said, you guys don't understand, airports are sexy. And they said, what do you mean? I said, we have more hugs and kisses per square foot than any other building that you'll ever find. And you can come out there any day and you'll see people hugging and kissing all the time. So you could have a lot of fun with it.
I actually, on a side note, today I was looking at a mom's group on Facebook, and one mom put an entire itinerary of what to do with a toddler at your airport. And so if you need that playbook, I mean, you could fill an entire day based on what she outlined. It was pretty incredible. So just a new revenue model for you, just putting it out there. I'm giving you a lot of good ideas. I got you swag. I got an activities, it's great. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you continue to inspire a culture of innovation at TPA. So where did you generate, you talked a little bit about Oslo benchmarking trip, but I'm curious about where do you generate inspiration from outside of your work to, and outside of the travel industry to really infuse the airport experience with new ideas, new energy, new ways of thinking?
Yeah, so one of our strategic objectives is also innovation and customer service innovation. And the idea is that we want our people to look around, understand what ideas they think are good, and supply them to us. And so we have a whole office of innovation where people just do nothing but think of new things to do, new ways to do things, and it works out really well. And so we've had lots of different things that we've been able to do. The customer service survey was one of those things. The LiDAR that I talked about, the radar that we use in the terminals, is another one of those things. So there's tons of new innovation that's coming up. As an example, I'll give you one other. We're really out in the forefront of these eVTOLs. How many people have heard of eVTOLs? Raise your hand. Okay. Electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. These are essentially drones that will carry people. We had a test out at TPA. FAA was there. It's not certified yet by the FAA, but we had a test. And we're leading the industry right now on how these can be used, what safety standards we should do. And the reason was we read about it like 5 years ago, and we all agreed this is the future. I mean, we know that drones, think about iPhones, right, 10 years ago and how they've changed. Well, drones are about to do the same thing. And so we want to be on the forefront of that. And think about how drones would change our aviation here. If you could take a drone from Tampa International Airport to the convention center at 5 o'clock at night and get there in 3 minutes, okay, instead of sitting on I-275, or from our airport to Albert Whitted down in St. Pete and be there in 7 minutes, the world changes, and it's going there. It's just a matter of time. And the FAA needs to regulate it, the FAA needs to understand it, but nothing can hold back technology, really, when you think about it.
For the benefit of the audience who's less familiar with the technology, can you talk a little bit about the use case of how you all are envisioning that future opportunity?
Yeah, so it'd be like Uber in the sky. It'd be the highest level of Uber that you can have, but as an example, you might leave from on the roof of our rental car center, and one of the routes is, if you go to Pad A, you're going downtown Tampa. Pad B is downtown St. Pete. And so to go to downtown St. Pete, it's $100, okay? And that's more expensive than an Uber, but you're there in 7 minutes. So if you're a business person that needs to go back and forth and have lunch and have meetings, that's a business expense, and it's worthwhile. So that's the business case. I see it as a very compelling one, too.
I would say, beat me up.
That's
beat
right.
me up, Lopano, I'm going.
Hey, this is meet George Jetson.
Yeah, I'm ready. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about you. And you've been very gracious. I mean, most people are here to learn about you, but you've been very gracious in giving us the innards of the airport that we will wear the jersey for. But you started your career as a cab driver in New York, and that's got to make you probably the most resilient person around. And as you head into retirement and reflect on the amazing and impactful career that you've built, from cab driver to CEO of Tampa International Airport, like, what are the big themes, the learnings that you're sharing with your kids, your grandkids about how they should progress in the world? Because we want to know what it's like to learn from you.
Great question. Yeah, so I was a cab driver and didn't go to college, and I met this woman named Janet, and she convinced me that I could go to college without any money. And so I got loans, and I got scholarships and different things, and I did go to college, and I graduated and started to work for Pan Am back in the day. And it's really, and my career has gone through airlines to airports. And my early career was with Continental Airlines. And my mindset at that time was one of a very aggressive, entrepreneurial guy that just wants to drive business. I just need to drive the business, and I didn't care about anybody else, really. Didn't care about developing other people, really. And I got fired. And that changed everything for me because as the guy in the back knows, we had to start over. And you know the Chris Stapleton song, Starting Over? Yeah, check it out. It's pretty good. It's
Not
really
gonna
good.
lie.
I had to start over, I had to reinvent myself. So I became an airport guy and decided that I would be an air service development manager. Now, remind you, I was a vice president at the airline. Air service development manager, take a huge step back. Just be the best air service manager that you can be, and just keep your head down and keep doing that. And I tried to help other people develop into as great as they could be. And the next thing I know, I'm getting promoted. And so right now, I mean, when people ask me, what's the greatest joy of being the CEO? It's being able to enable greatness in others and watching their team become better and better and better. And so that's where I put my focus, was more outward, not inward, and changed my life.
That's inspiring. I mean, I think I can appreciate the warmth and the gratitude that I get from being able to watch a team develop. But I think what's really fascinating is that you progressed in your career by giving to others. And it's counterintuitive, but I think ultimately it's how do you make it bigger than yourself, and how do you make the sum of the parts larger than each individual? That's definitely something that all of us can learn from. Well, you alluded to your son. He asked us to ask a question. And I don't know if you wanted us to share that, but I did. And he said that we have to hear about your experience with Pan Am Light and what that taught you about what you have to get right beyond the idea.
Okay, so it was Continental Light that's why I got fired, was Continental Light. So they needed someone to head up an airline within an airline. And I had been, I'm pretty convincing, and I can convince people to do things that I think are a great strategy, even though at some point they turn into not great strategies. And that was Continental Light. And so we tried to create a low-cost airline within an airline. And what we got wrong, really wrong, is that we were creating two different brands and creating brand confusion and resentment and anger from customers who were used to Continental and a first-class upgrade, and then they connected in Houston, and the planes all coach. And they're like, no, you're either Continental or you're not. And that was the truth, and we failed. And it was a painful time for me, really painful, but I learned a lot of lessons. And I guess the one takeaway there is be whatever you think you're supposed to be and be the best at it. You can't be both. It's like making a pizza with no salt, with no cheese on it. It's cheaper, but no one's going to buy it.
I'm curious then from that perspective, if you're seeing, like I don't even keep track of the sort of the offshoots of the major airlines, but the discount versions of them. Have they had that same issue that you had years before as they've tried to create that spin-off discount brand? Like I'm thinking about United and TED, and I know each airline has their version of it.
Yeah. Most of the low-cost carriers now are like Spirit and Frontier, and they're the only position they have in the market is that of a low-service, low-fare airline. They don't have first class, never had first class, you're never going to get an upgrade. Okay, so I don't have that expectation. When you have that expectation or create that expectation, disappointment is deadly. And those low-fare carriers now have established their product. Some people like it, some people don't. And I'm looking at the Delta guy, and the Delta guy has decided to go the complete opposite way and has very successfully enhanced their premium cabin, enhanced their club services, and so on. So, as a frequent flyer, I use Delta because it has what I want. But as a person who's really concerned about budget, maybe I would be flying on Spirit or Frontier because I know that's their brand position. And the problem with Continental Light is it was trying to be both. It can't.
Yeah, creating that customer confusion and trying to be everything to everyone and ultimately disappointing their core customer.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to switch over to some of the questions that everyone had submitted via the QR code that is rotating. It'll rotate back, trust me. So we'll pull up some of the questions that are coming from this group. What technology are you most excited about for the future of Tampa Airport?
Well, the eVTOL that I talked about, and the other is hydrogen fuel for jets, which I think would be amazing if we could ever get that to happen, and they're working on it. So we got to get rid of CO2 from aviation. It really has to happen. And I believe that'll be within 10 years.
Along those lines of sort of big seismic changes that have to happen in the aviation world, what else is sort of those big things that, as maybe your summits of fellow CEOs of airports are talking about in terms of like, in 20 years, the whole industry has to be this far? What are the priorities that come to mind in those conversations?
Lots and lots. In fact, for Tampa Airport, I'll give you an example. I mean, we're going to build a new airside, 16 more gates. So that'll be about a 20% increase, 25% increase in gates. But once we build that new airside, we don't have any place else to build an airside unless we go to the north of the airport and create a north terminal, which would be at least $10 billion. And the question I would ask is, what's the return on that investment? So are you going to get the 12th flight to Chicago? Is that what this community really wants for $10 billion? Or so the question is, the airports have grown with the economy up till now pretty much unconstrained. But I was talking to the FDOT guys, and I'm like, how can I double the size of this airport when you can't get there on 275? What's the point? What's the point of us building parking garages there when you can't get there? And when you really think about the whole ecosystem of the airport's sort of an island on its own until it's not. And now we're a part of everything. Everyone has to progress in order for us to get people to the airport without their car, because we have no more storage place, no more garages for them, and the roadways are completely congested. So maybe the answer for transportation in Tampa is do it for the airport. Yeah. If you can't think of anything else, do it for the airport.
Absolutely. So this is a question that got 2 votes, so I got to ask it because 2 people in this audience want to hear it. So you were talking about the eVTOLs. If you're an eVTOL company working with the U.S. military, how can we engage with your team for the 2026 eVTOL flying car plan at Tampa Airport? Somebody's asking, like, they know you're talking about it, they know you're interested, they have something to offer. What do they do?
Okay, so let's see how we do this. You can reach out to me, and I'll direct it. We aren't exactly, on our website, I don't think you'll find a spot for eVTOL interest. It's just not there yet. But we work very closely with MacDill. We work very closely with all the airports in this country. So, and I have a staff of 2 that are have testified before Congress on eVTOL safety. So if you'd like to, just send it to jlopano@tampaairport.com. It's not that tough, and just say I was at the speech that you made, and here's my particular interest, and I'll make sure someone gets back to you.
That's awesome, and thank you for the access. So you were talking a little bit about the let's back up. So earlier I had mentioned that there was recently an article about the amount of growth that the Tampa Bay region has experienced in terms of airport traffic and attendance and people coming to, or travelers coming through the airport. There's obviously been an insane amount of growth in this region. Talk to us about, I'm sure it's good, I'm sure it's headaches. Talk to us about, as the place that welcomes most of these new residents and just the overall new number of visitors, what have you done as an organization to accommodate that change, and how have you adapted to that growth? Because I feel like everybody in the region could learn from how you all are navigating it.
Yeah, so we do our master plan, which according to the FAA is a 20-year plan, but as I told you before, we really don't look more than 5 years out. It's almost impossible to do 20 years. And what we're seeing is that in an unconstrained environment, we should be able to handle about 23 million passengers now. We should be able to grow to about 35, 37 million with this new terminal that we're going to build. And the way we see that being, it's a headache, like you said, but at the same time, the benefit of it is it enables us to attract the airlines that people in our community really want, like Virgin Atlantic, like Copa to Latin America, like Lufthansa, like British Airways. And so now that we're sort of a force to be reckoned with and people understand what this community is really all about, we're able to attract more very, very important flights, like the flight to Amsterdam's coming back. The flight to Mexico City just started, and it's already exceeding expectations for Aeromexico. They're going to upgrade it to a 737. Here's the thing about Tampa. People don't understand us until they get here, until they plug in. And they're like, I didn't know we'd get so many business class passengers. I said, that's because you don't understand us. We're not just beaches, and we're not just Florida. Tampa is something special. And once they understand that, and the way airlines work, it's a lot like lemmings. When they see somebody else is successful, they're like, why didn't I think of that? And airplanes are movable assets. So they're just like, okay, plug an airplane in there, see what happens. And what they've done is they've done that exactly, and they're pleasantly surprised. Aeromexico already in just 1 week's operation is way ahead of forecast. Yeah, so this whole population growth is challenging, but it gives us great opportunities to add things that are important.
And in addition to the population growth, sort of in conjunction with all of that, was COVID. And I'm curious, what through COVID, post-COVID, were strategies that stuck, that things that you had to react to because of the circumstances we were in, but then you're like, hey, this is a good idea, let's keep doing this. I'm sure there's a couple of those in the customer experience.
Yeah, I think what COVID really taught us a lot about was employee communications. And so every week I would make a video for our employees. And they came up to me after COVID was over and they said, you were the only person I could believe. Because if you all remember during COVID, everybody was spouting off something. So I would just tell them what I knew. Here's what I know. And every week we did it. And they said that was the most comforting thing, was to see you, hear your voice, and we believe what you're telling us. And we kept that up. We started our own TV channel at the airport. We've hired, my marketing person just left, but I was going to brag on her here. Oh, hey, Emily. Really smart people who know how to communicate. Most of them are former journalists. So what we do is we make sure we communicate to our critical audiences all the time. And that the social media that you talked about earlier, but we also have an internal communications department that's very, very strong. And so we have great employee engagement, and we learned that through COVID, that communication is critical when people are worried.
And somebody, sort of on the subject of talent and your employee base, they were asking, how do you all build a sustainable talent pipeline, especially as you're thinking about expansion?
Yeah, so we have cooperative agreements with University of South Florida, HCC, and we have internship programs. But we also have, we can also attract talent by virtue of the fact that we have really good benefits. We have a new office building with a great gym, fitness center, great cafe, great outdoor amenities. You can work from anywhere. And so when we bring people in for interviews, they say, this looks like Google's headquarters. I'm like, yeah, it does. That's the way it's supposed to look. That's what we want to do. I don't think people thought an airport was going to build a building like that, but we did. And we filled it within 3 months. It's now 97% occupied, and it's very profitable. And it's a really cool work environment, especially for the younger folks who want to work out on the terrace using the internet. And anything is nothing's impossible at that building.
What's the most in-demand role for you right now? Like, what are you guys trying to attract in terms of your team?
So a lot of cybersecurity, IT, fair amount of human capital resources, and that's where we're focusing a lot of our attention. I mean, we're almost like a city. I mean, have a jail, a police force, a fire department, got all of that. So what's the most important department? I think the cyber has been our biggest worry, because we're a national asset. So if they take us down, Los Angeles suffers, because there will be no flights from Tampa to Los Angeles if it goes down. And so it's a matter of national importance, and we have a really good team at cyber, but I think that's where we're really focused.
Well, as we sit in the ReliaQuest auditorium at Embarc Collective, and I think we know some folks who can also be supporters. So
well, we got OpSWAT that took the whole top floor of our building.
Oh yeah,
they moved out of San Francisco.
We got good talent in this region. If you couple that with MacDill, there's a lot of cyber talent there. So hopefully you've got good people to solve those huge problems. I'm going to ask a couple before we wrap up. I am always curious about regional identity, because this seems like something that we are continually grappling with, and there's a couple of questions that sort of get at this. So Tampa International Airport is one of the few regional gems, regional resources that exist in a place that still has Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater. How do you sort of stay above the fray, aside by maybe being in a plane, but how do you stay above all of that tension and bring everybody together as one region?
I think I'll go back to when I was interviewed for the job, and they said, Joe, can you get international flights in here? I said, yeah, there's like 4 million people here. And they said, no, there's not 4 million people in Tampa. I said, but that's not Tampa's airport. That's the gateway to the west coast of Florida. That's a regional asset. And when you position it that way, we got Edelweiss Air to fly from Zurich. They switched from Orlando to here because we convinced them you could drive to Sarasota and you could go to Disney and you can do all these regional things. So I think the greatest example of regional collaboration/cooperation is Tampa International Airport. I mean, if we had built that airport just for the people who live in Tampa, we'd probably have, 10 gates. Now we've got like 60 gates, because 9% of our customers come from Sarasota. Half of our customers come from Pinellas County, the other half from Hillsborough. So we are a regional asset, and it's sort of, we could use that as an example of a regional MPO. Right? Why would you do that? Well, because what we do affects the county next door. And what the airport relies on is both counties having transportation systems to feed that airport. So the cooperation is critical.
All right, I've got 2 more questions, and I'm going to let you off the hot seat. So the first being, does Tampa Airport have a slogan? And if not?
America's favorite airport.
Okay. All right.
I made it up and no one challenged it, so it's been that's what we've said for the last 15 years.
All right. Well, somebody in this group asked if they were open to suggestions. You want to fess up who you are and offer your suggestion?
I'll take that back to marketing. It's like,
That could go into our merchandise portfolio.
that's
And
right.
don't forget, Embarc Collective is a nonprofit. So if you want to
Oh,
give
man.
any
Well-
donation to our way, we'll take it.
No, one of these entrepreneurs is going to start a branded Tampa website of Tampa shirts and whatnot, hats.
I might
and
do
so
it
on.
after my daughter goes to sleep tonight. Watch out. I'm a beast on Shopify. All right. And then the last question. You're sailing off into retirement.
Huh?
What are you going to do?
I don't know. That's the number one question everybody asks me, and the answer is I don't know. I just know it's time for me to go, and I did what I said I would do, and now I'll move on, and someone else will take over, and I'll find something else to do. Maybe I can help some of you young entrepreneurs help figure things out. I don't know. I'm just going to be happy not to have any place to go, no meeting, and no deadline, and no agenda.
Well, I can appreciate that. I think you deserve it. I think you've done a good job. I think you've done everything you said you were going to do and more. And you always have an open invite to come to Embarc Collective, our security data layer. And if you want to know anything about that, it will go off, but we'll still let you in.
Thank you very much.
If everyone can join me in thanking Joe Lopano, not only for a great discussion, but just the amount of service to our community is incredible. Anything I didn't ask before we're off the stage?
No, I think, this is a great organization. I'm so excited about what you guys do, and my son is involved in this ecosystem, and he sometimes tells me the ideas that you guys come up with, and I'm just so excited with the way you think. I mean, you're thinking of things that I could never, my generation could never think of, and it's exciting to see what you're coming up with. So, like I said, thanks for having me over here tonight.
Absolutely. And listen, your career is going to stick with all of us because of the learnings around keeping your head down and serving others. The other thing I took away was you can reset and restart and be successful at any point in your career, and ultimately listen to the customer. You guys get incredible insights from just watching what we do.
So I'm going to get you the Chris Stapleton CD so that you'll understand what
What is-
starting over is all about.
What is a CD?
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
As they get ready to get off the stage, thank you all so much. It was such a fun and engaging and inspiring conversation, both Joe and Lakshmi. And before we close out the evening, I want to feel free to head off if you guys want to. Okay, take a picture. We'll multitask. I just want to do a small plug for Embarc Collective's 501c3 mission. We really serve entrepreneurs eager to solve some of the world's biggest problems and make sure that anyone has access to the tools and resources to do so, because they make not only the world a better place, but our own local economy and region. I'm with Joe. This is a group and community effort. And Embarc Collective subsidizes 75% of the cost of membership to our entrepreneurs here at Embarc Collective to make sure that they get the support that they need to change the world. So that's equipping entrepreneurs with the tools, the resources, the programming, and the coaching to do that, much like this event tonight, really facilitating strategic networking and connections. I know at least one entrepreneur in the room got an introduction to Joe tonight because of the industry that they work in, which we love to do. And the ability just for the founders here to develop deep bonds with other folks who are building in the lonely and crazy and tumultuous journey of entrepreneur life. So together, we increase the chances of success for startup builders in Florida. And so thank you for being here. Come back to one of our 200+ community events hosted by our team and you all that happen right here in this room. And thank you for being here.